Thanks so much for being here. Let's go ahead and get into the subject for this session of the Matrix Study Hall. All right, we're going to be going into the beta programming and how this is the integration of AI in the form of a lot of beauty regimens that are marketed towards women. Okay, so if you just think about beta programming, okay, this is an aspect of Project Monarch. Okay, so when you see the symbolism of butterflies, although it's cute and all that, there is a much more subtle imagery that's being put out there. It's representing being under a sort of a trance. All right, also alluding to MK Ultra. And if you're familiar with MK Ultra, you know where I'm going with this. And if you're not, it is a part of a GOVT program. Again, catch up with the codes that I use here on this platform. As you know, in order to remain in the algorithm, you have to use codes. You can't use certain words. And so anything that may draw some type of conspiracy, I have to kind of switch it up. So just follow through. When you think about the GOVT, when you think about some of these programs, they are utilizing experimental programming and also forms of mind control in a very subtle way, and oftentimes is disguised in clothing, fashion, okay, looking to be a trend. Now, when we look at the beta programming, what do I mean by beta programming? Okay, it is referring to people that are in elite positions, all right, and they put forth this image of being extremely sensual. Okay, this is a tool. This is a way in which to not only yield control, but to also get other females that watch this type of programming to behave in a similar way. But oftentimes, these people have undergone extreme levels of control in order to be in the positions that they're in. And so, what we're seeing with some of these key figures, although they may be put in a position as the beauty standard, okay, it also is showing that they have ties to hidden elements that not only perpetuate beauty and hypervigilance when it comes to focusing on the outer self. It is also about power. It is about control. Something that is in circulation a lot now is when it comes to the fashion industry, there's a lot of female clothing that has leopard print. And what does that mean? Now, of course, it's trendy, it looks good, okay, it's very appealing, but it is also a code. If you wear this particular type of clothing or this pattern, when it comes to leopard print, animal print, oftentimes that is a key to let people know that are engaged with human trafficking and things like that, that this person is on go. This person will be okay with being in that type of position. All right. And so oftentimes we are associating ourselves with things that we're not even aware that we're being made a pawn in the tool of the enemy, okay, in the skin trade. Another thing too is in regard to the imagery. So when you see alter egos, or when you see the checkerboard symbolism or the black and white symbolism, that is also representing having a disassociation with who you are, not sure if you need to be true to yourself or you need to be this created figure that you have created. That is a major tool that's used in the entertainment industry. I also want to tie in the whole connection with Marilyn Monroe. Now, she was a siren, okay, she was attractive, but she also was under a lot of control. All right, but it was utilized in a way in which to make it seem as if she was free will. But if you've ever, or you may have read articles, or I encourage you to, if you're into elevating your mind when it comes to being within this world and not allowing yourself to fall into a sense of mind control, because it has the ability. And when you read about some of her journal entries, she talked about feeling that, she had no choice but to present herself in a certain way in order to keep the fame that she had. Okay, so she, it's known that she had handlers, and they condition her to put out a certain type of image. And so when we are beginning to entertain ideas of certain types of beauty standards, we have to check ourselves and realize that a lot of things that we begin to think that is normal, or things that we begin to look forward to, in particular when it comes to different types of surgeries that are elective, it is very dangerous. But because mainstream media pushes that in order to achieve a level of beauty, you have to be in an altered state, you have to be man-made per se, then oftentimes many of us fall into that level of having a conditioned mind. Trust me, I've been there. We all have entertained that, well, maybe I can do a little this or that, but that's a sign of being conditioned. That's a sign of being manipulated mentally. Another thing too I want to get into regarding the ushering in of transhumanism. Now, why this is so important is because although technology is very beneficial in so many different ways, it's about advancement, it's about people not only utilizing the things that they know through intelligence and all of that. However, where there are blurred lines in regard to transhumanism is because it is not of God. If you are creating life, or the pseudo form of life, that is trying to take the place of God, the erasure of God. And so in doing so, that is not of the Most High, that is of the Most Low. And so let's get into now how they are trying to usher in the Tesla bot and transhumanism. So in the age where there is a big push for gender wars, okay, man against woman, woman against man, all these, think pieces and podcasts in regard to, how women can use men, how they could find a high value man, all in the quest of what this man has, right? And the opposite of that, they have men in positions where they're looking at women in a very low position. So when you have a construct that's put in place to keep the genders divided, but then you usher in alternatives like the Tesla bot. Now, they've, really been pushing that women, should be hateful towards men and then get a battery operated boyfriend. Okay, that is very, very popular. And now they're leveling up the ante, and they are introducing the, you can just order yourself how they would have the mail order bride when it comes to men. Now they're trying to romanticize a Tesla robot as a viable companion for women. Okay? This is something that I'm going to use his abbreviation, EM. So this is what EM and his company is putting out. Now, if you already seeing that the Tesla car is malfunctioning and is just spontaneously combusting, you're going to actually get a Tesla man and actually think that that's going to, like, this is the makings of a sci-fi horror film, basically. So let's get into this, because this is in reference to this humanoid robot called Optimus. Now, this particular public figure is posed with this robot in a very sensual way. Like, this is also prophetic when it comes to scripture, and I'm gonna get into that scripture in just a moment, because that's about iron mixing with clay and how that doesn't mix. Now, years ago when we had to do Bible study, I did not understand how this stuff was going to come to pass. I was just thinking like, oh, I'm probably not even going to be alive when this stuff starts actually coming into play. But a lot of the things that we were learning about in scripture, in particular when it comes to Revelation, are coming to pass because iron and clay not mixing is an aspect of what they're trying to do, of ushering in this whole merge between women or men actually not choosing to be with our natural counterpart, but choosing to be with man-made machines. Okay, so they're ushering in this to create not only control, but ultimately to disseminate the population, basically, because you're not going to be able to procreate like that. Okay, this is not of God. So give me just a moment. I'm going to get into the scripture that I just spoke about when it comes to iron and clay. But before I get into that, I appreciate all of you that are here. Thanks so much for being with me. Go ahead and like and subscribe as you enter in. And again, I want to also thank those of you that are donating to my platforms. I really appreciate it. All right. And so give me just a moment. All right. And so we're going to get a little bit more into this whole transhumanist agenda, okay? Because what's happening right now is wild. Like literally, we're basically in the future in some aspects, and a lot of things that are coming to play are surreal. It's like I can't believe some of these things are happening, but it is. And it's not that we should put our heads in the ground like an ostrich and to try to avoid what's going on. Through your awareness, that is your protection. Okay? Right about scripture. All right. So let me let this populate. So, okay, the prophecy of iron and clay. Now, again, this is a biblical warning in regarding to transhumanism and the threat that it brings forth. Now, the prophecy of iron and clay in the book of Daniel 2:31 through 45, okay, is one of the most well-known passages that gives a warning in scripture, okay? And many people have theorized that this particular passage is a foreshadowing of transhumanist future. And again, as I mentioned, I thought that this is far removed from something I was going to ever hear about. But now that they are trying to make the Tesla robot look as, you can just order a dude in a box. Like, yeah. So it's a bit weird. But when you refer to this particular scripture, okay, clay is representing human bodies. Iron represents technology or anything man-made. So with the integration of AI when it comes to men and women, oftentimes we're not realizing that we're becoming more so of hybrid humans. How so? Having worked in the surgical department, I was privy to see a lot of things. And when you are in that environment and you realize that a lot of things that are used, to save people's lives or to help them in some type of health ailment, when it comes to surgical implementation, it is bordering on making people like cyborgs. So for instance, when you think about if someone has faulty heart valves, they may put what's called stents in. So basically those are plastic parts, basically, and sometimes it's metal that go inside, and they use it to replace if you have blown out your valves. So why this is such a problem is because although they are therapeutic, I digress. Although they are medical interventions, okay, in order to extend your life. Oftentimes when you get a surgery, which is why it's so important to try to do your best to safeguard your health, to focus more so on preventative health, meaning to make sure your health is good, that you don't need any surgeries. Because when anybody that gets surgeries, it is automatically decreasing your life, because you're merging human elements with metals, with plastics, making you what? A hybrid human, making you basically a a version of a cyborg, a version of like a robot. Okay, and so this is why, although it may cause you to be able to be, get up and do whatever it is you need to do, but at the same token, if you're not completely human, when you have these artificial parts inside, it takes away. And another thing too that I want to share in regard to this whole beta kitten programming of thinking that we should enhance ourselves through surgeries, and why it is such a serious thing that a lot of people are experiencing the consequences of, is because when it comes to, and I'm going to get further into that scripture in just a moment, but when it comes to merging yourself with man-made materials, that is a form of transhumanism, and ultimately, these people end up having dire health consequences later on. And so, many women in particular, because there's not too many men that involve themselves in these procedures, but a lot of women are becoming very cyborg like, okay? Kind of like a modern cyborg, because you've allowed yourself to become that way. Yeah. And so let's go ahead and get further into this when it comes to the whole transhumanism thing. So, transhumanism and the AI integration. So, being that you can be an elevated or an upgraded version of a human through procedures, and the danger of it. What the reason why it's such a danger too is because when you are augmenting yourself, you are merging your human identity with actual machine. All right. And so, although these people that are in these surgical departments, they will speak about it. If they're really honest with you, they'll speak about why, although it's a very profitable business venture to be in, you know, there's major consequences that can come into it, because the human body is not supposed to have iron, metals, plastic parts inside the body, because eventually the body will reject it. All right. Another thing too is that initially it may appear that the person looks upgraded, but eventually is going to age and degrade the person, because the body naturally is going to reject it. This could also be into why some people, when you have these certain procedures, you put yourself in a position of being a slave to it, because you're supposed to switch these parts out after a certain amount of time, after what, 5 to 7 years or so. So even in thinking about that, like, you've already merged yourself with machine. All right. So the digital influence of like a hybrid human through these procedures is really, really a dangerous thing to be involved with. Another thing too is that it could affect your neural networks. All right. So you think that you're going to go in and mess with God's design, you're affecting your neural pathways that extend from your brain throughout all of your systems, in an effort to become more attractive. We have to focus on just loving ourselves the way we are, okay? Enhancing ourselves to the best of our ability in a natural way. But when we begin to think that we can outdo what God has done for us, then that becomes a problem. In essence, we've become robotic when it comes to a lot of these procedures. All right. We also do not put emphasis on the fact that there's a lot of human error. Again, I really enjoy working in a surgical department, for some years. And the enjoyment of it is seeing how there's so many different things, so many different procedures. Like, you're always able to learn something different. It never gets boring. And so in doing so, I realized that all of these people, they are very qualified. They've gone to school for so many years, but they still, as surgeons, as technicians, as anesthesiologists, all these people still have room for human error. And oftentimes we don't factor that in. And so we have to realize that, there's things that can go down that could be detrimental to you in the form of these procedures in your effort to, merge with AI, that you may not find out the repercussions of it until years later. Another thing too I want to share is in regard to how this whole flesh and machine thing correlates with the problem that we're beginning to see within society, to blurring the boundaries between being an organic human and an artificial one. Okay, this whole post-human aesthetic is something that seems very futuristic, but we're actually experiencing now. And as AI continues to dictate what is considered beautiful, okay, we all are in some aspects affected by this. We see it constantly regurgitated on our commercials or in media in general. Even when you see the images of people, even the images that we create for ourselves, oftentimes they have this look that is not necessarily truly who you are, because they're wanting us to feel like there's something wrong with us being purely biological of who we are. And we have to also realize that this is a problem. This is a biblical warning for the transhumanist agenda. Now let's go ahead and get back into the prophecy in regarding to this. So the prophecy of iron and clay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to jump on over to my Lotusofjudah 1111 channel. You can follow me over there if you feel, I'm comfortable in doing so, because I like to do my biblical word, or my little messages over there when it comes to scripture. So I'm going to be tuning out here and going over there, and I will see you there soon. Bye bye. Also, link will be in the description box. Thanks so much.